The next morning, while taking the children to school, Daniel met Adiz, a teacher at Chinedu's school. She noticed his tired eyes, the careful way he balanced the children and groceries, and the quiet dignity with which he carried himself despite obvious exhaustion. "Sir, are you okay? You always bring the children to school. Is everything fine at home?" she asked kindly. Daniel hesitated but finally opened up, sharing bits of his struggles. Adiz listened, her expression one of genuine concern. "You're doing so much, and it's clear you care deeply for your family," she said softly. "Things will get better, I promise. Just have faith and keep praying." For the first time in months, Daniel felt seen, not as a servant, not as a houseboy, but as a man, a father, and a human being worthy of respect. That encounter, brief as it was, planted a seed of hope in his heart. Perhaps there was more to life than silent suffering and unappreciated sacrifices. Perhaps, just perhaps, a life with dignity and love awaited him. And little did Daniel know, this chance meeting would become the turning point that would change his life forever. Daniel Okoro's life had been a test of patience, endurance, and silent suffering. Every day, he walked a tightrope between humility and dignity, serving Grace Nwosu and their children while quietly bearing the weight of humiliation. But the encounter with Adiz, Chinedu's teacher, had planted a glimmer of hope in his heart, a hope he hadn't felt in years. It started with small gestures. Adiz would greet Daniel warmly each morning as he brought the children to school. She noticed how carefully he balanced the youngest child on his back while holding the older one's hand, how he patiently dealt with chores, and how he never complained despite obvious exhaustion. One afternoon, as Daniel waited outside the school for Chinedu and his sister, Adiz approached him with a gentle smile. "Daniel, I've been meaning to ask," she said softly, "have you ever thought of doing something for yourself? I can see how hard you work, and I know it's not easy." Daniel hesitated, unsure how to respond. Pride and loyalty to Grace had kept him silent for so long. But something in Adiz's kind eyes gave him courage. I don't know," he admitted. "I've always believed my role is to take care of my family, to support Grace and the children. My own needs, they always come last." Adiz nodded. "That's admirable, Daniel. But you're also a person with dreams and dignity. You deserve to live with respect and peace. Maybe it's time to take small steps for yourself too." Over the next few weeks, Adiz became a quiet pillar of support. She encouraged him to explore opportunities to regain independence and financial stability. Seeing his dedication, she even offered to help him with a loan to buy a small car, enabling him to start a modest transportation business. "I know it's not much," Adiz said, handing him the paperwork, "but it can help you get back on your feet. You're a good man, Daniel. Don't let anyone take that away from you." Daniel's heart swelled with gratitude. For the first time in years, someone saw him, not as a servant, not as a houseboy, but as a man worthy of respect, capable of standing on his own. With Adiz's support, Daniel bought the car and began walking, ferrying passengers across Lagos. Each day on the road gave him a sense of dignity he hadn't felt in years. He repaid Adiz's loan diligently, within a year, and eventually bought 2 more cars, expanding his small business. Despite the growth, Daniel's loyalty to Grace lingered. He never wanted to hurt her, even though she had long stopped appreciating him. But with Adiz, he felt a warmth, a partnership, and a respect that he hadn't experienced at home in years. One evening, as he drove home after a long day, he reflected quietly. "I've spent so many years serving others, maybe it's time someone serves me in return. Maybe it's time I live with respect and peace, even if it means making hard choices." Unbeknownst to him, this newfound independence and emotional support would soon test his loyalty, awaken desires he had suppressed, and challenge the life he had built with Grace. Daniel Okoro's life was slowly changing. With the small car he bought through Adiz's support, he began ferrying passengers across Lagos. The work was hard, the traffic relentless, but for the first time in years, he felt a sense of control, independence, and dignity. Every day, Addis checked on him. She encouraged him, offered advice on managing the car business, and reminded him that he deserved peace and respect. Their conversations were simple, but they carried a depth that Daniel had longed for in his marriage with Grace. "Daniel," Addis said one afternoon as he sipped water at a roadside cafe, "you've worked so hard all these years for others. It's time you worked for yourself. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are." Daniel smiled, a quiet warmth spreading in his chest. I never thought anyone would see me this way. Not Grace, not anyone. Thank you, Addis. Their bond deepened naturally. Addis didn't just help him financially, she listened, encouraged, and valued his opinions. For Daniel, who had spent years serving Grace without acknowledgement, it was a revelation. Meanwhile, Grace's attitude at home had not changed. Even though Daniel had begun earning again, she continued to belittle him. She would mock his business venture in front of neighbors, saying, "Is that little car business enough to feed this family? Don't embarrass yourself, Daniel." Daniel endured in silence, focusing on his work and his growing friendship with Addis. But his feelings began to stir admiration, respect, and eventually a quiet attraction. He found himself laughing more, sharing dreams and frustrations, and enjoying a kind of partnership he had never experienced with Grace. One afternoon, as he repaid Addis' loan fully, she smiled proudly. "See, you did it, Daniel. You worked hard, and you succeeded. This is just the beginning." Daniel felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he was building something for himself, not just for Grace or the children. He even bought 2 more cars, expanding the small business and securing his financial independence. But as his life improved, so did the tension. Grace grew increasingly critical and jealous, sensing a shift in Daniel's confidence. She didn't know about his emotional bond with Addis yet, but she could feel it in the way he carried himself, calm, confident, and no longer subservient. One evening, Grace confronted him. "Daniel, I don't know what's happening to you. You think you're better than me now. Don't forget who put you through life when you had nothing." Daniel looked at her calmly. "Grace, I've never forgotten anything. But I've also learned that respect is earned, not demanded. I'll continue to do my best, but I'll no longer let anyone belittle me." That night, Daniel lay awake, thinking of Addis and the life he could have with someone who truly respected him. He felt torn between loyalty to Grace and the growing realization that he deserved dignity, peace, and love. The stage was set. Daniel's new life had begun, but the choices ahead would test his heart, his loyalty, and the very essence of who he was. Daniel Okoro's life had taken a turn he could never have imagined. His small car business was thriving, thanks to his diligence and Addis' eager support. Each day, he felt a sense of pride and dignity he hadn't known in years. Yet, despite this growth, a storm of conflicting emotions raged within him. Grace Nwosu, his wife, remained as arrogant and dismissive as ever. Though Daniel now earned his own income, she continued to belittle him in public, mocking his business as child's play and questioning his intelligence. The neighbors whispered about her behavior, but Daniel, ever dignified, chose to endure silently. "You think you can just start earning and suddenly become important?" Grace sneered one evening, tossing her briefcase onto the sofa. "Do you know what it means to be a lawyer? I have real power, real respect. And you're still just a man with a little car." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "Grace, I've always respected you, but respect is mutual. I cannot continue to be treated like I'm less than human." Inside, he struggled. Loyalty and love for Grace still lingered. She was the mother of his children, the woman he had sacrificed for. But every act of disrespect and humiliation chipped away at his heart. Meanwhile, Adi's presence brought warmth and understanding. She encouraged him, praised his hard work, and treated him as an equal. He found himself looking forward to their conversations, feeling appreciated and respected in a way he hadn't been for years. One rainy afternoon, as Daniel helped Adis carry school supplies into her classroom, he felt a mixture of guilt and longing. Adis. I don't know what I'm feeling, he admitted. She smiled gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. Daniel, it's natural. You've been undervalued for so long. You're learning what it means to be seen, to be appreciated. Don't feel guilty for wanting that. Yet, Daniel's heart was torn. Grace's occasional smiles and nostalgic words reminded him of their early love, the days before ambition and pride had created a chasm between them. Memories of Grace graduating, of their early life together, tugged at his conscience. At home, the tension grew. Grace began to sense a change in Daniel, the quiet confidence that radiated from him, the little sparks of independence that had once been smothered. She couldn't understand it, and it frightened her. Daniel, don't think you can ignore me and go chasing after. I don't even know who, Grace spat one night, suspicion and jealousy in her eyes. Daniel looked at her calmly. Grace, I'm not chasing anyone. I'm just learning to live with respect and dignity. You've made your choices clear to me. Now, I must make mine. For the first time in years, Daniel realized he had a choice: continue to endure humiliation in a marriage devoid of respect, or step into a life where he was valued, appreciated, and loved. The road ahead was uncertain, and the heart is a fragile thing. Torn between two worlds, loyalty to the past and hope for a brighter future, Daniel knew that the decisions he made in the coming days would forever change the lives of everyone around him. Daniel Okoro's life had shifted quietly but profoundly. His small car business was flourishing, Adi's easy support had restored his confidence, and for the first time in years, he felt seen, appreciated, and respected. Yet, the shadow of Grace Nosu's cruelty still lingered, a reminder of the life he had built through patience and sacrifice. The emotional bond between Daniel and Adis had deepened into something undeniable. Their conversations, once practical and supportive, had become moments of warmth and understanding. Adis admired Daniel's humility, patience, and resilience, while Daniel felt the respect and emotional safety he had longed for all his adult life. One evening, after a long day at work, Adis invited Daniel into her modest Lagos apartment for a cup of tea. Daniel, there's something I need to tell you, she said, her hands trembling slightly. I'm pregnant. Daniel froze, his heart pounding. The reality of the situation hit him like a tidal wave. He had never imagined this moment, yet he felt an overwhelming surge of responsibility, love, and fear. Pregnant, he murmured, his mind racing. Adis, what will Grace say if she finds out? Adis' eyes were filled with both fear and hope. Daniel, I trust you. I know this is not what we planned, but we'll face it together. I don't want to lose you or this baby. The thought of Grace's reaction weighed heavily on him. He remembered every humiliation, every insult, every act of disrespect. Yet, the love he felt for Adis, and the respect he had finally found in her, gave him courage. That night, Daniel made a decision that would change his life forever. He packed his few belongings from the house he had once shared with Grace, kissed his children gently, and quietly left their compound. He didn't shout, didn't argue, he simply stepped into a future he had long deserved. Moving into Adis' home, Daniel dedicated himself entirely to her and their unborn child. He accompanied her to antenatal appointments, massaged her feet to ease her discomfort, cooked meals, and ensured she had every comfort possible. He cherished the opportunity to provide the love and respect he had been denied for so long. News of Daniel leaving Grace spread quickly through their neighborhood. Reactions were mixed. Some celebrated his newfound independence, saying, "Finally, the man who endured so much has found peace." Others whispered disapproval, shocked that a husband would leave his wife, regardless of her treatment. Meanwhile, Grace's world began to unravel. For the first time, she experienced the weight of responsibility she had long forced Daniel to bear. She woke early to bathe the children, prepare meals, and manage the household alone. The arrogance and pride that had defined her life now became a prison of chores, stress, and regret. Daniel, however, thrived in his new life. Adi's pregnancy progressed smoothly, and their love deepened. He felt a sense of purpose, pride, and happiness he had never experienced with Grace. As he held Adi's hand one evening, looking at the soft glow of Lagos city lights outside her window, he whispered, "We'll take care of this family together. You and this child, you have my heart." In that moment, Daniel knew that respect, love, and dignity were worth far more than loyalty to a marriage that had never honored him. And for the first time in a long while, he felt truly free. Daniel Okoro's life with Adi's had entered a new chapter, one filled with respect, love, and hope. The modest Lagos apartment they now shared was alive with laughter, warmth, and the anticipation of their first child. For Daniel, every moment with Adi's felt like a gift after years of humiliation and invisibility in his marriage to Grace Mosu. He dedicated himself fully to Adi's and the baby. He accompanied her to antenatal appointments, cooked her favorite meals, massaged her feet when she was tired, and ensured she felt cherished every single day. For the first time, Daniel experienced what it meant to be a valued partner, to be seen, and to be loved unconditionally. Meanwhile, the neighborhood buzzed with the news. "Did you hear? Daniel finally left Grace," whispered one tenant. "I never thought he'd have the courage. He deserves happiness after all he went through." Grace, on the other hand, faced the harsh reality of life she had long forced Daniel to endure. She woke before sunrise to bathe the children and prepare breakfast. She carried them to school, managed the house, and faced the endless cycle of chores without the partner who had once silently supported her every step. The arrogance and pride that had once shielded her were replaced with exhaustion and frustration. She began to understand, painfully, how much Daniel had sacrificed for her success and how cruelly she had treated him in return. One evening, as Grace struggled to cook while simultaneously attending to her children, she muttered bitterly to herself, "How did I let this happen? Daniel, he did everything for me, and I threw it all away." At the same time, Daniel and Adi's were planning for the future. He had expanded his small car business into a fleet, ensuring financial stability for his growing family. Every decision he made was thoughtful, guided by respect, care, and love, values he had longed for but never received from Grace. The anticipation of their child's arrival brought them even closer. Daniel marveled at Adi's strength, admired her patience, and felt a profound sense of gratitude for the life they were building together. One afternoon, as he helped Adi's decorate the nursery, he whispered, "We've come a long way, haven't we? From struggles, pain, and sleepless nights, to this. I promise you, Adi's, we'll make this family strong, happy, and full of love." Adi smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "Daniel, you've already given me everything, respect, love, and peace. That's more than I could have hoped for." And as Lagos evening lights shimmered outside their window, Daniel felt a serenity he had never known. He had built a life where dignity and love coexisted, a life he had always deserved, but only found after enduring years of hardship and making the hardest choices of his life. Life had become a mirror for Grace Mosu, reflecting every choice, every word, and every act of arrogance she had shown toward Daniel Okoro. Now that Daniel had left, she experienced firsthand the weight of the household responsibilities he had silently carried for years. Every morning, she woke before dawn to bathe the children, prepare breakfast, and get them ready for school. The once simple tasks now felt overwhelming. Laundry, cooking, cleaning, shopping, and managing the children alone consumed her days. One afternoon, exhausted and frustrated, Grace sat on the edge of her bed, holding her head in her hands. She whispered bitterly to herself, "Daniel, why didn't I see? I had everything, and I treated him like he was nothing. I took him for granted, and now he's gone." The neighbors began to notice the change. Whispers filled the compound, "See how the mighty have fallen. Grace used to be so proud, but now she's learning the hard way." But Grace didn't care about the whispers. Her regret was personal, deep, and painful. She missed Daniel, not just for his support, but for the dignity, care, and patience he had brought into her life. For the first time, she understood the true weight of respect and partnership. Meanwhile, Daniel thrived in his new life with Addis. Their bond had grown stronger, and the joy of anticipating their child's arrival filled every corner of their home. Daniel was no longer the invisible, humiliated husband. He was a man respected, loved, and fulfilled. One evening, Grace watched from her window as Daniel, with Addis, laughed while decorating their nursery. The sight cut deep. She realized that the love she had scorned, the man she had belittled, had found happiness and respect elsewhere. Tears streamed down her face. "I wish I could turn back time. I wish I could treat him right. I was too proud, too blind," she whispered. The truth was undeniable. Daniel's loyalty, patience, and sacrifices had shaped the woman she had become. But pride and arrogance had destroyed the very foundation she once took for granted. Grace's reflection was harsh but honest. She had learned too late that respect, love, and partnership could not be demanded. They had to be nurtured, cherished, and reciprocated. For Daniel, though, life was full of hope. His journey of patience, humility, and perseverance had brought him not only financial independence but also the love and respect he had always deserved. The contrast between his life and Grace's regret was stark, a silent lesson for all who witnessed it. The sun rose over Lagos, casting golden light on a new chapter in Daniel Okoro's life. The modest apartment he shared with Addis was filled with joy, anticipation, and love. After years of struggle, humiliation, and quiet endurance, Daniel finally experienced the life he had always deserved. Addis went into labor one quiet evening. Daniel held her hand tightly as they rushed to the hospital, whispering words of encouragement and love. Every touch, every word, every action was a reflection of the respect and care he had longed to receive and now freely gave. Hours later, the cries of a newborn filled the room. Addis held their beautiful baby in her arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. Daniel leaned in, overwhelmed by love and gratitude. "We did it, Addis, our family," he whispered softly, brushing the baby's tiny hand. "I promise you, I'll always be here for you both." In that moment, Daniel felt complete. The years of sacrifice, humiliation, and silent suffering had led him to this, a life filled with love, respect, and purpose. Meanwhile, Grace Nwosu faced the stark reality of her choices. Her arrogance and pride had left her alone, shouldering the responsibilities she once demanded Daniel handle. She woke before dawn, bathed the children, prepared meals, and struggled to keep the household in order. The neighbors watched quietly, some shaking their heads, others whispering lessons learned from Grace's fall. Grace often thought of Daniel, the man who had sacrificed everything for her dreams, and felt a pang of regret that cut deep. Pride had cost her not only the respect of her husband but the chance to experience genuine love and partnership. Back at Addis' home, Daniel was laughing softly as he held his child while Addis rested. Their love had blossomed not just from attraction but from respect, trust, and shared hardship. Daniel knew he had made the right choice, not just for himself, but for the life he wanted to build. Weeks later, Daniel and Addis officially married in a small, joyous ceremony surrounded by friends and family. The union was a testament to patience, resilience, and the power of respect in a relationship. Daniel often reflected on the journey, the sacrifices he had made, the humiliation he had endured, and the love he had finally found. And while Grace's regret lingered as a cautionary tale, Daniel's life with Addis was filled with peace, happiness, and dignity, an existence he had fought so hard to achieve. As he watched his child sleep peacefully in Addis' arms, Daniel whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. Thank you for the lessons, thank you for showing me the value of respect, love, and partnership. This is what life is meant to be. And in that warm Lagos evening, Daniel Okoro finally knew true happiness, a happiness built on patience, perseverance, and the priceless gift of being truly seen and loved.